So we had an opportunity to come to our, well, I guess we call this our home park.
Home park, yeah. I like that better than local park.
Yeah, come to our home park for Halloween. We realized we've never made a video about Poinsett. It's right here in Sumter County where we live. So
It's a great park. They call it the Mountains of the Midlands.
yeah. So this video is all about Poinsett State Park. We happen to be here on Halloween weekend, so I hope you enjoy. So we saw in, I guess it was late August, that Poinsett State Park was getting closed for a little while they repaved
All the main
road.
drags, yeah.
So I said, you know what? We haven't been to Poinsett in a while. Let's try and record, but let's try and go out to visit Poinsett as quickly as we can after they reopen. And
we were kind of jonesing for a trip. We hadn't been since Labor Day.
yeah, so we decided to book Poinsett for Halloween weekend. We were kind of thinking we'd have some other campers in a camping group join us, but it turns out that the 3 weeks they were closed, a lot of those people that had reservations got moved into this weekend. So wound up with a lot of people who weren't expecting to be camping on Halloween, but still it was a full park. The new paving is fantastic.
Super nice, yeah.
Unfortunately, the county road getting in here still is pretty rough, but the new road is very, very smooth. So
It's
that
like,
was nice.
Nice road.
Yeah, and it starts right as soon as you get to the gate, when you see the sign for Poinsett, and it's smooth all the way in. They widened it as much as they could on the main road. It's 2 lanes comfortably on the main road.
Now, the road that heads toward the park, towards the camping area, isn't a super wide, and they were not able to widen it, and we were able to discuss that with one of the rangers of like, you know, why couldn't you ride the road? And interestingly enough, Poinsett State Park, if you didn't know, is a Civilian Conservation Corps park, so it's one of the 16 CCC parks in the state, and the ditches up to the lookout and the campground road are made of coquina stone, built by the CCC, and since the park is historic, the coquina stone is historic, the ditches are on the historical preservation registry, and they
can't widen it. So they are, the park realizes that this is an issue.
Yeah.
They said they're expecting to thin some trees out this winter,
which will help, because as the road kind of curves, you can see, especially at night. At night, it was actually easier to traverse because you could see headlights or glint off another car, and you're like, oh, we'll just wait, because there's a widened section.
Yeah, they were able to widen a little part of it.
So you can kind of hang out over here in this widened section while somebody else comes down. They talked about like a green light, red light system. Right. But in all, they're aware, they're working on it, they're making improvements.
Just know when you come from the main road up to the campground, it's going to be tight. There's not a height issue. There's not a length issue of a
Not even
camper.
a tight curve,
No,
really.
not really.
Just that.
It's just narrow. So if 2 cars coming into each other, one of them's backing up.
Yeah.
So
it's
just
more than a fold in your mirror situation.
Yes. So just know that. Oh no, this campground is really nice. The thing that is, it's kind of its, I would say, its shining best attribute are the trails.
Yes.
The hiking and biking trails here are fantastic.
And when saying that we're the Mountain of the Midlands, like the terrain is very diverse.
Right.
We hiked the Coquina Trail, as a matter of fact, and I mean there are some images. I'm sure he'll put that in. We're really high up, looking down on the lake, more so than you would expect in the Midlands.
Yeah, in the Midlands, you know, it's predominantly flat, but this is in what they call the high hills of Santee, which is some bluffs over the Wateree River. The Wateree River is just a little bit west of us right here.
Well, and really what would have been like the bluff of the coast, like the first part of the, you know,
millions of years
ago when Sumter would have been underwater. This part of Sumter would have been really the edge of that coastline.
Right.
Kind of cliffs over the coast.
And that's actually the coquina stone that they mentioned. They used a lot of the coquina stone in building the cabin behind us, which is the main office. And that is sediment from when this was the coastline. So there's a lot of shells that became sediment that packed over millions of years. Sorry. So over millions of years, this sediment, these shells got packed tighter and tighter and tighter until they became a stone. And when the Civilian Conservation Corps showed up, they used what they had locally, and it was this coquina stone.
And they did that across the country. Like, what do we have? What kind of timber? What kind of stone? What kind of sand? What kind of woodwork? I mean, it's all done with local, elements. So that's what makes it the historical value as well.
Yep.
It's really neat. You can see pieces of it at the park store is still.
Yeah, the park store is that. There's also the remnants of an old water wheel.
Millstone.
There's a millstone there, and the race that the water ran out of. They kind of discovered it when they showed up here, and they kind of brought it back. There's also a really pretty kind of water area over on the other side of the dam where the water crests down over a spillway.
Yeah.
So lots of pretty photo opportunities here.
And I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting a lot of fall foliage here, but it really is shown out. Like, you expect more fall foliage, up higher up in the mountains, Devil's Fork, Oconee, when we were up there for Halloween. But the foliage here was gorgeous. And I mean, there's a lot of pine trees. There's a lot of other stuff that was really showing off this season.
Especially around the pond, because there's a lot of varieties of trees. So each one of those varieties of trees has a different color. So it really looked pretty. It was really pretty.
Well, and with the lake part, and some of the trail we were on is part of that Palmetto Trail.
That's right.
And so a lot of it's been redone because it's part of that Palmetto Trail. So it had a nice new boardwalk over part of the water. A lot of the signage was new, and all of that is because it's part of the Palmetto Trail. So it was connected in that regard.
Well, and I think also they got new staff here that started last year in 2022, and I think they've really focused in on what it is that people are saying that they want.
And what makes this park special, which is the mountain bike trails.
That's right.
And
the lake. There's
canoeing, kayaking,
paddle boards.
Are there paddle boards?
Yeah, there's paddle boards. Not paddle boards, paddle wheels. And nope, I don't see any paddle boards. No stand-up paddle boards.
They weren't those boats.
Yeah, there were. There were several of them. Yeah, when we came up the trail.
They weren't in the.
They were in that little boathouse.
We went in that boathouse, and there were not any. There were just the John boats. We went in the boathouse. There were just John boats. Look.
And there's one of the other neat things. If you like camping, or if you like being out here at the parks, but you don't have a camper and you're not up to doing the whole tent thing, they do have 5 cabins here, and the cabins were all built by the Civilian Conservation Corps, so they're 90 years old, but they have modern amenities.
Yeah, they've been renovated, I'm sure.
Yeah, they
somewhat. They can't only do so much.
Yeah, they have, like I noticed when we drove by, they have tankless water heaters, and you get all the linens and the kitchen accoutrements. So really neat deal.
It would be great if you, and I mean, obviously that would be based on availability, but if you had several families that you want to get together, because in the middle there's this huge fire pit and these really nice chairs and benches and stuff all around. So it would be awesome if you had, a small group or a church or a dinner club or something that wanted to get away, because I think there are various sizes and varieties.
And then there's several
picnic
shelters. There's several up high with great views and vistas. There's several down here near the camp store.
And the trails go off every direction. Like there were trailheads up at the park store. There's trailheads up at the campground. There are trailheads up at the cabins. There's trailheads over, away from the cabins. There's trail by the water.
The trails wind all over this property.
And then even on the trail, it's like, do you want to stay on the one you're on, or do you want to go on a different one? And you're like, I didn't bring my map, so I'm going to stay on the one I'm on.
And most of them are bike friendly, so be careful when you're out here. There might be some people on mountain bikes. There are a handful that the grades get so steep, and there's stairs or steps or things like that where you can't take your bicycle. But
the Coquina one we were on would not have been.
Yeah, there were several parts.
There were real sharp turns that if you didn't make that turn,
You going
down and into the drink at the
Yep.
bottom, and it would have been a little scary on a bike. But the knot that was attached, that kind of crossed with that trail, so part of Coquina did have bikes availability, and then the knot went up behind it. And we see a lot of people. We've been out, several times. We've camped out here once before this, and then we've come out a time or two just for things.
Just for the day.
And there's always somebody unloading bikes. A lot of the campers that we saw this weekend
had bikes.
Bikes loaded on the back, or kayaks loaded on the back, things like that. So it's very much a recreation park.
Yeah.
One thing I would say is the tent sites. There's a whole loop for campground, camping, RV camping, and a whole loop of tent camping. And the tent camping did not have electricity. And so
we'll talk real quick about the campground. So it's basically a figure eight. So the first part of the figure eight you come into is that camper section.
Camper loop.
And then the second loop is that of the tent sites with just water. So some people like to have that electricity, especially in the winter, so they can put a little heater in there.
Yeah. So there's nothing to say you can't tent camp on an RV site. So if you're looking, you'd rather have the electricity, rather have a little bit bigger pad. It's a little less privacy over the campground side, RV side. The tent side is very much very thick trees, lots more privacy. You're in your own kind of little niche, but also without the electricity. So that's a concern.
We'll pause here. We'll show you our site, and then we'll come back and kind of finish up with some of the other things that are happening in the campground right now. So, all right, we're gonna take a look at site 21 here in just a second, but I want to kind of show you first and foremost. Poinsett State Park is in almost like a figure eight, and we are right at kind of that 8 mark. So the way you back into this site, this is actually the loop. This is the middle of the 8. And site 22 is a pull-through site that a lot of people wind up driving through when it was not occupied. In order to back into this site, you almost have to back in an S. So backed in to the right and then had to take a left. I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see that on the camera, but once you got in here, it's a nice big deep site. Plenty of room back there. Sorry, the sun's gonna be in our eyes for just a second. Water and electric, 30 amp, not 50 amp. Oop. Nice and deep. You see back there. Come around, it's got a very nice area. There's the neighbors, you can see how close they are. It's got a nice deep area for family space, and then the woods behind. Come back around and show you the neighbors on this side. They're a bit further away. And then there's also this little community building there. That's kind of neat. The kids have played a lot in there. All in all, nice site. We had a nice weekend here at Poinsett State Park. Our site was really pretty level. I just used the 3/4 inch boards. I didn't need the full Anderson, but we had the boards and the gravel. They are redoing a number of the sites with the boards and gravel.
Yeah, and they're he said they're doing 3 here and doing 3 and
and he said they're doing them. The staff is doing them themselves. So it's whenever they have an opportunity, have some time to get into it. So you might want to kind of pay attention. I'm gonna also do another video of us just driving around and showing all of the sites as we drove through. So if you're looking for a particular site, know that as of Halloween 2023, this is what they look like, but they will be getting more and more of those that are not gravel at all, that are just more natural. They will be getting timbers around them. They will be getting the gravel. We saw the gravel, the piles of gravel sitting over to the side. So just know that's coming. Also, one of the other neat features here is there's a huge field just off of site 17. And I can imagine if you came here with like a whole bunch of friends that had children, that'd be an awesome place to have a soccer set up, to play football, do volleyball.
Just our kids who collect kids spend a lot of time in that field.
Just to go run.
Yeah, they took their bikes, they took a Frisbee, there was a basketball I don't really know how we ended up with here. I mean, we brought it with us, but I don't know where it came from originally. And they bounced the basketball. There also is a nice little community building that's right kind of where that figure eight comes together. that has, it's screened in, and there is a fireplace in there. I don't know that it works, but I think it'd be a fun thing to have, like a camp-wide, you know, you want to come and cook off or just potluck kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh no, this is a great little campground right here in the Midlands.
It's a small campground and a big park,
yes.
I would say. I don't know what the exact footprint is, but the park itself is one of the bigger ones just because it covers a lot.
Because of all the trails. And it's also right next door to Manchester State Forest on the north side. As I mentioned, the swamp and watery are right to the west. Just don't go east because that's the bombing range for the fighter pilots. Shaw Air Force Base, F-16. So
not just our F-16s, they come from all over.
Yeah, so
anything that can drop a bomb.
Yeah, so I guess that's one little caveat. Don't be surprised to hear a lot of aircraft overhead because there's a shooting range right next door.
Especially if you're here on
during the week.
Yeah, every once in a while you see them on a weekend. I hear them on a weekend, but during the week specifically, you're going to hear the planes.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is make sure, double check, you have everything you need before you leave.
That's true. Yeah.
Poinsett isn't real close to anything, and then even once, like we had a few things that we'd forgotten or just needed, and I ran in to town, which is Wedgefield, which isn't a big town, and really the Dollar General is your only option, and it still was like 6 miles from.
Yeah, the Pinewood is to the south, Wedgefield is to the north. I remember last time we were here, I looked them up. The Dollar Generals are almost exactly the same distance apart.
One was like, I looked it up when I was leaving at 5.5 and 6.2 or something like that. Like I knew where the 5.5 one was for sure, so I went there. So, you know, just run back there and be like, do we have ketchup? Do we have cheese? Do we have...
Let me also throw a plug in. You know, we like to try and explore around. Well, this is our home park, so we know this area.
So we didn't go back into town for stuff, but if
you're here visiting and you're looking for something to do, I highly encourage you to consider going into Sumter and checking out the Swan Lake Iris Gardens. It is the only place in North America where all 8 species of swans live at the same
habitation in the same place, and it's a pretty park. It's a pretty park any time of year. There's the old cypress trees, and so they have a little bit of color, and the moss during this time of year. But in the spring, everything's blooming and it's really pretty. Well, and in the winter, like in a couple weeks, the camellias will start to bloom.
Yeah.
And there's usually stuff.
Swan Lake is actually divided into 2 parts. Liberty Street divides them, but there's a very easy, accessible walkway that goes across to safely go across the highway. On the one side is the actual lake itself, and there's a nice trail that goes all the way around it with the camellia garden over on the other side.
There's even like a chocolate garden where everything smells like chocolate. There's a braille garden. Of course, there's a big playground for kids. Now, I mean, Poinsett's got a big playground, but there's a big playground. Yeah. And then the other side is the bland gardens.
Right, and that one is more boardwalks through the water ways. It's a little shallower, so really pretty walk, and then that connects to another trail that goes through the middle of Sumter. So that's new. That's a new addition.
But it also is very close to our downtown, which has several places to eat. There's a big brewery. There's places with live music on the weekends. There's all kinds of stuff close to our downtown that is fun. If you are more of a chain restaurant person, there's stuff out closer to the base. Yeah. But yeah, go check out. I mean, Sumter's got some really neat things, and so if you're visiting from out of town, you're not locals, we would highly encourage you to go check out Sumter and Swan Lake.
Yeah, Swan Lake especially. It's probably the thing we're most known for, and it's a beautiful place. And as is this entire campground here. This park is wonderful. We realize we should come here more often.
Yeah, every time we ride out, we're like, why don't we come out here more often?
It's just pretty. The rolling hills, the leaves, the trees, the water.
And even though we call it our local park, it still took us 30 minutes.
30 minutes without the camper, and about 40 minutes pulling the camper, just navigating traffic. And but all in all, great park. Come visit. We'd love to see you.
Holler at us if you are.
Yep. Thanks for watching.